Hello guys, TKG here for your comfortable LostArk life. In this video, I'd like to cover one of his class engravings of the Slayer, as the video in my channel has some old introduction and editing, so I thought it'd be great to remake it just like the recent cover video. Now follow me, I'll show you what you need. Let's start with the basic of this video. Class engraving I'm going to recover in this video is PUNIHSER Slayer. PUNIHSER Slayer is another class engraving that using the identity as a main DPS circulations. So more like the other class engraving like Ignite or Sorceress, you need to get into the Rage or Burst mode to complete your DPS circulations. PUNIHSER class engraving will reduce the identity uptime to 15 seconds, but unlike the Predator Slayers, exhaust penalty won't occur on the PUNIHSER Slayer skill circulations. So when the burst got off, you can start up the identity supply right away. And of course the burst will buff the identity skill called Bloodlust. So the main or the core of the PUNIHSER Slayer is really easy to understand. All you have to do is fill up the identity, enter the burst, and throw everything you have on that 15 seconds uptimes is everything of the PUNIHSER Slayer. Unlike the hard identity requirements, PUNIHSER Slayer has a quite stable DPS performance, if the condition well met. Personally, I think the PUNIHSER Slayer is really capable from the high tier raid like the Thermite Behemoths. As the overall level of the players got boosted on the tier 4 update in KO, most of the raid progressions are quite faster than the previous versions, so delivering huge damage in short period of time are now quite preferred on most of the raid. So I think it is still interesting and worth to build. And as you can see, PUNIHSER Slayer is a class engraving that requires pre-work. As I mentioned, if you wish to complete the whole damaging cycle and to see the full DPS performance, you need that identity. And maybe the short identity uptime can be a matter. Above all damage skill circulations needs you to stay back of the enemy. So in short, you need to stay back. At the same time, you need to throw everything you have on that 15 seconds uptime. And this can be a big hurdle for some players. And short on movement skills also can be a big disadvantage, because there is no movement skill that moves through the enemy. So you need to get back by point your cursor to the back of the enemy. And besides, that Bloodlust cannot be cancelled when you used it. You have to see the full motion in order to get free on your control. Not to mention that Bloodlust skill has a huge damage at the last character motion. Currently, there is a 2 formalized build on the PUNIHSER Slayers. Both builds have their foundation on the specialization with the variation critical over swiftness. And maybe some of you might wonder, I thought the huge damage on short period of time, why swiftness? Well, that thing has a reason. Guillotine is one of the backbone DPS skill of the PUNIHSER Slayers, but with some requirements, like if you have more than 530 swiftness and level 9 cooldown gem, will make it possible to use the Guillotine twice at that 15 seconds burst time, with the Furious Claw twice. And we call this cycle Eagle EP build on KR right now. And not to mention, because of the swiftness build, you can have more comfort on your control, and with cooldown reductions, you can bounce back to the cycle more easily than the critical stat build. And the other build is critical build. Normally, PUNIHSER Slayer has a 69 to 74 critical rate without the extra level 3 adrenaline build. From there, adding critical necklace make your critical rate about 80 to 90. And because of the Kimball weapon and entropy effect, you could see some decent critical damage if you decided to use this build. But the problem is, I think personally, the critical build skill circulation is quite hard to play in the actual raid. And personally, critical build is not pretty much effective than the swiftness build, and because of this reason, most of the top tiered PUNIHSER Slayer use the swiftness build for the smooth gameplay. Current recommended engraving build can be like this text box, and I think currently the Cursed build is quite capable for the alt character, due to the reason of the elixir and the slight bad combination of the Cursed adrenals. It has a stable floor damage performance, but the penalty of the Crystal and the Elixir, this build was quite lost interest for now. And probably the common build of the Punisher Slayer, build without survival penalty. But the big problem of this Engraving build is that if you miss the critical, performance will drop dramatically. But still, you could be okay with your critical synergy friends. Both build damage increase difference are about 1.3%, so it can be minor, so you can use it with your preference. Also, there is a lot of variation on the Punisher Slayer too, like using the mass increase or using the level 3 adrenals, but that is quite not that common or formalized, I think. So I try to stick to the most common Engraving build, so if you had a better experience with the other build, please share your infos through the comment. Skill tree of the Slayer is categorized into, well, 1.5 cycle or 1 cycle build, which more like the build are decided by the identity supply skills. In other words, Punisher Slayer skill build is decided by how many identity supply skill you will going to carry with you. So, if you can supply the full identity meters with the whole identity supply skill you have, that can be called as 1 cycle. If you have to do the other action, like waiting, that can be called as 1.5 cycle. And of course, both builds requires different level of specialization. For example, if you wish to use the 1 cycle, you have to build your specialization level to about 1808 or higher. Core of the 1.5 cycle build is carrying movement skill Wild Rush and use the spinning sword twice for the identity supply, and using the Guillotine Furious Claw twice on the identity of time. And the other skill build is using one more identity skill by giving up the movement skill Wild Rush. And as I mentioned, you need the high level of specialization to complete the 1 cycle build. Which one is better? Well, I think that it's quite dependent on the player's preference. 1.5 cycle build have more consistency on its cycles. I mean, you can continue the same skill cycle on every 25 seconds, but the 1 cycle is quite limited on its action. So if you wish to have a consistent DPS circulation, you can use the 1.5 cycle build, which I'm covering in this video. Or if you don't mind that much about the downtime, you can use the 1 cycle build. 1.5 cycle skill build of the Slayer can be like this text box. Especially the Guillotine Brutal Impact Volcanic Eruption is a main DPS skill of the Punisher Slayers. So if you wish to see the full performance, you must make an effective hit with these 3 skills. Cycle of the skill will be covered on the skill management section. Also for the 1 cycle build players, you have to replace the Wild Rush to Cruel Pierce with the rare Wealth Rune. Awakening skill of the Punisher Slayer is Ragnar Break. Well, it's a preference, but the damage performance of the Ragnar Break is quite exceptional, so I prefer the Ragnar Break. And not to mention, Ragnar Break is greatly useful when delivering the huge damage in a short period of time. Core of the 1.5 cycle is Identity Supply, which start from the Wild Stomp, Spinning Sword, Ground Smash, and use the Spinning Sword once more will fill up your whole identity. If don't, I mean if you short on specialization stat, you can use the Wild Stomp once more. And then turn on the Burst, Guillotine, Furious Claw, Brutal, Volcanic, Bloodrust, and use the Stomp, Furious Claw, Guillotine. And then repeat the Identity Supply DPS cycle again. Well, actually there's not many things to concern about the damaging cycle itself. But the big problem of the Punisher Slayer has a little picky conditions to fulfill. Like I mean, you have to stick to the back, do the damaging cycle with that short 15 seconds uptime of identity. And one more problem is that the guillotine twice, timing of the guillotine is quite tight even with the level 10 cooldown gem. Furious Claw twice has quite plenty of time, but guillotine timing can be missed easily. If you don't like that tight cooldown, you can use the quick recharge at Wild Rush. Personally, to be in the MVP crew fighters, you need to at least make an effective hit with the Furious Claw. Well, some of the guys was asked about what about the guys with the Flashblade? Well, that thing is for the level 3 Adrenaline skill build. So it is using the Flashblade as a synergy by replacing the Wild Stomp. With shorter cooldown, it can make you to maintain the Adrenaline buff easily. But Flashblade has a short cooldown than the Wild Stomp, but has a short synergy uptime. So mostly, Flashblade used for the players who needs to maintain the adrenals. That's it for this video. Thanks for watching everyone, and always thanks for your big support. Hope this video was a little help for your LostArk journey. Hope you do well with your Slayer with this video. And of course, if you like my videos, hit us up for more upcoming infos. I'll come back with more useful infos in the next video.